Next question relates to preterism, and so first I might ask you to help us define that term for those unfamiliar with it. And then this viewer asks and says, I've recently jumped into the preterist vacuum. I've struggled with full preterism and its seemingly plausible interpretation. I know how bad it is, and I've been trying to convince myself psychologically against it.
Okay, first, excuse me, what preterism is comes from the Latin word for the past, pastism, basically. And preterism is the view that many of the prophecies of the New Testament, which are typically understood as applying to the future, the end of the world, are actually prophecies that were fulfilled in our past. So let's say the Apostle John writes the book of Revelation. Most evangelical Christians think that the events of Revelation are yet to be fulfilled in our future. That's called futurism. And a preterist is someone who says, no, I think that the book of Revelation was largely fulfilled in the first century in John's future, but in our past. So that's the preterist understanding. And the problem with preterism is that it has great explanatory power. It explains a lot of passages very well. This generation will not pass away until all these things are fulfilled. Well, Jesus said this generation, the one he was in. It has the explanatory power. It explains all the passages that say the time is at hand, the night is almost past, the Lord is at the door. The sense of the imminent return of Jesus in the New Testament. Preterism explains very nicely. The problem with preterism is that when you buy a new hammer, everything looks like a nail, and because it has a great explanatory power with many passages, and it really does. Some people have adopted what some call full preterism or consistent preterism, and what opponents would call hyper-preterism. And that is the view that says all of the prophecies of the New Testament were fulfilled in the first century, which means there's no resurrection of the dead in our future. There's no eschatology. There's no terminus of our history. Things are just going to go on forever. Now there are. For my money, I would describe myself as a partial preterist. I believe that preterism is an orthodox biblical way to handle many of the passages. But full preterism is the shiny hammer that makes everything look like a nail. It thinks that because it has great explanatory power here, 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 and here, it explains absolutely everything. Well, the problem is that it explains you right out of the Orthodox Christian faith, because full preterism is not just a debate about the timing of the second coming. It involves other things like the nature of the resurrection body, the nature of the last day, the nature, it involves things that are much closer to the heart of the gospel. Now, the historic Christian church, through our 2,000 years thus far, has not really come down on eschatology. So the Apostles' Creed, Nicene Creed, Chalcedon, all the way through. You can be an amillennialist, postmillennialist, premillennialist, and be an Orthodox Christian. The only eschatological statement that the historic Christian church has ever made is that full preterism is wrong. Because you have in the Apostles' Creed that I believe Jesus Christ, who will come to judge the quick and the dead. Jesus will come in our future to raise the dead, judge the quick and the dead. Well, that is inconsistent with full preterism, and that's the only eschatological position it's inconsistent with. So preterism is good, it has great explanatory power, but watch your step, because some people have slipped into unorthodox views of the resurrection and history and the narrative story that God's telling, simply because they've taken it too far.
For someone watching this thinking, whoa, that's new, radical, interesting, some resources that we might recommend that would introduce even the general topic of preterism.
Yeah, the best books I know for Probably the best introduction to post-millennial preterism would be Keith Matheson's his book, simply called Postmillennialism. And I've got a book on eschatology as well called Heaven Misplaced that Canon Press publishes, and so you'll get some of that there. For people who want to do more, chase all the verses down, Ken Gentry's He Shall Have Dominion is good. So Keith Matheson, Postmillennialism, my Heaven Misplaced, and Ken Gentry's He Shall Have Dominion.